Hey guys, how's everyone doing? I hope you're doing well. Just want to do a recap on what's going on, touch base with you all. I know it's been a while since I've made a video. And I want to speak about some current events and kind of assessing the situation. Now, I'm doing all of this from a freedom and liberty perspective. So, some people will understand where I'm coming from. Some people don't think like that. They think in a left-right paradigm, and they're programmed into the system. They're in the matrix. And so a lot of what I'm talking about will sound Chinese or a different language to them because they are like robots and they just do what they're told. So, what's going on? Well, first of all, I think it's clear that we have a government corporate conglomerate that is acting in a coordinated fashion around the world to implement a top-down, centralized, hierarchical system, i.e. communism, and that's what's going on, and they're pushing, and they're bribing the local governments, they're bribing the nation states, and these people are like the WEF, the IMF, all these international government organizations, UN, and that's what we have going on. So this is the fight that we're in. It's freedom versus totalitarianism, and it's techno-totalitarianism, right? The end goal for them is transhumanism. They want to turn us into like really robotic humans. They want to chip us. They want to change our biochemistry. They want to make us more programmable. They want to know every aspect that there is to know about us through biometrics and chips that they plan to insert inside of us. This is openly what they talk about. I mean, and people want to say it's conspiracy theory. There's no conspiracy about it, or theory about it, I should say, because they openly talk about it. And hey, it seems like they have reach, right? Like the last meetings that they had, they pulled in world leaders from all over the globe. They had, industry capitalists like Jeff Bezos, and they got actors like Leonardo DiCaprio under their umbrella. So, I think this is a formidable threat to humanity, and I think this is what we're dealing with. Whether they're going to be successful or not, it all depends on how many people wake up and fight back. If we just lay down, of course, they're going to run over us. But if we actually get in touch with our values and our principles and work in our community, we can build up resistance, and I firmly believe that. And there's tools out there, and I think they'll go after them. I think that we're going to see them go after our communication ability. I feel like there's a lot of truth getting out there with Joe Rogan and Dr. Malone and all the stuff that's now coming out. And I feel like doctors are finally starting to get a backbone and starting to address the lies and the manipulation that has happened over the past 2 years. So I think they'll eventually go for the communications and make life really hard for humans to connect and mount a formidable resistance to their tyranny. So we'll see. But yeah, that's where we're at right now. I think it's undeniable. It's there for everyone to see. And, we saw what's going on yesterday with the Supreme Court justices and their statements. So basically, it's all lies. It's all propaganda. And they're using that as their arguments, and it's going to be very interesting how that comes about. Personally, I have no faith in the system whatsoever. I think it was designed to fail. I think it was designed for a controlled demolition. This has been warned about since the 1950s. I can find a speech from the John Birch Society where they actually talk about the 10 steps in which they're going to dismantle the United States, and it's happening step by step, almost exactly to the T, as he described. We look at what's happening in Europe, and the parallels to Nazi Germany and communist Russia are very much apparent. what I heard is that you're not even allowed to compare what's happened over there to the 1940s. So just to give you an idea of how totalitarianism works, right? It requires people to live by lies, to live within the lie, the framework of the lie. So that would be that there's this deadly virus going around, and that we have to wear masks, we have to social distance, we have to change everything about our lives in order to be safe, right? And of course, this is all a lie, and I think everyone's well aware of that. Some people lie to themselves, and we can see that with the vaccine, and I'll give you an example. So the vaccine was marketed as safe and effective, 95% efficacy rate. Of course, now it's at a 0% efficacy rate. People are getting infected, and not only that, but they're transmitting the virus even if they're vaccinated, even if they're boosted. So it's very clear that the vaccine doesn't do what they originally promised it would do, what they originally promoted it would do. And so what do people do? Well, the propaganda outlets, they put out this narrative like, oh, well, yeah, it doesn't work, but that's okay because thank God you have the vaccine. Otherwise, it would be severe. But with the vaccine, it's only mild, right? So they shift the goalposts. And for people, right, they don't want to live with that cognitive dissonance. Nobody wants to feel like they've been fooled. And so what do? Oh, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, I'll go, and that's the narrative they go with, not realizing that they have been fooled, that they were promised, they were promised immunity from the virus. They didn't receive it. Everything was basically built on lies, the whole narrative. But hey, the ego comes into play. I don't want to be fooled. They give me a separate narrative that somehow makes me feel better. Oh, okay, yeah, if I get COVID, at least it'll be mild. I just want to make it clear, it's mild for almost everyone, whether you're vaxxed or you're unvaxxed, okay? So whatever narrative, whatever fairy tale you need to tell yourself to feel better, I mean, just be aware of it. Just be aware of what you're doing, all right? You're lying to yourself because the truth is just maybe too painful for your ego to deal with, all right? So yeah, that's what's happening here. I don't think that the Supreme Court is going to do anything special. I don't think that they're going to uphold our rights. I think that the government limiting itself and its powers is wishful thinking, and we're just in this situation where we're going to see how far they take it. And I think that's where we're at. We're in this kind of like gray zone right now, where we don't know how far governments are going to go. Obviously, in Europe and other places, they're willing to go to extreme lengths. In Australia, they're building concentration camps. And yeah, I call it concentration camps because that's what it is. I'm not a fan of euphemism. If you're held, right? If you're held in a place, right, where there's like a concentration of people and you're held against your will, because you're one of the undesirables, right? That's a concentration camp. So yeah, how far are they going to go? I feel like there's a lot of people who are over the narrative, who are over the bullshit. We've been wearing masks. Well, I haven't been wearing a mask, but I'm getting inside the psyche and the mindset of people. They've been wearing the mask for two years. They got their shots. Now they're asking for boosters, and even with boosters, they still have to wear a mask. I think people are over it, and they're kind of like, okay, how far our governments are going to take this, we don't know. And they're kind of in this gray zone. They're over it, but they're still complying. Guys, if you comply, it's never going to end. It's never going to end. And then there's some people that, listen, they had no purpose. They had no meaning before COVID. They lived in a constant state of unfulfillment and anxiety. And all of a sudden, COVID comes around and they got something to grab onto. And this is their hero's journey. This is their opportunity to say, wow, I was in a great war. I was in COVID. And man, I'm one of those good soldiers. I double mask, I triple jab, I wear gloves, I sanitize. I got a whole fanny pack whenever I go to Whole Foods. I got a whole fanny pack of hand sanitizers, right? I got all the colors that you need. Like these people take pride now in the narrative, and they're never gonna let go of it. There's a certain segment of the population that will always hold on to that narrative, because it gives them meaning and gives them purpose now, and it gives them fulfillment. And they are COVID warriors. On top of that, they'll never be able to admit that they were fooled, that all the data was bunk, that the establishments and the institutions are corrupt. They'll never be able to admit that. I mean, that's too much of psychological damage, too much of a hit to their ego. So they're going to cling on to the narrative and they're going to defend it. And this is all stuff that Yuri Bezmenov has talked about, ex-KGB agent who talked about all the psychological manipulative tactics which are used in order to subvert the minds of the population to instill a totalitarian regime over the people. And all of that, you can parallel that to what's happening here in the United States. You can overlay that into all the things that are, all the policies which are coming out from the government and from the media and the way they're acting. Same thing. It's the same thing. It's just the differences are superficial, but at the core, it's all fundamentally the same thing. All right, and that's where we're at. So, you know, I'm just keeping my options open. I'm just paying attention to what's happening. I'm living my life. I'm enjoying my life. I'm grateful every day. I thank God every day for this opportunity to see what's happening. I get to see, you know, first of all, like the Bible, it's so much more relevant right now. The Bible is so much more relevant right now. We get to see exactly what those myths and those stories, what they relate to, right? And it's really human nature and how we act at a primal level. And, you know, God shows us a way to overcome that and live in his grace. And that's a beautiful thing. And I'm so glad I found that. And, you know, a lot of that came through living in this time period and seeing how backwards the world is. And just how far people are able to be misled if they don't have something to ground themselves to. And for me, that's God the Father and Jesus the Son and the Holy Trinity with the Holy Spirit there. So I'm grateful. I love life. It's beautiful. It's just incredible to watch. You know, of course, I pray every day for you guys to wake up, to have courage, to have strength, to speak the truth, to tap into your own personal sovereignty, and to really take matters into your own hands, to think and act for yourself, to develop the internal processes in order to assess information and come up with a perspective that is your own, from your own unique experiences and your own unique intuition, and not be led by these people on the news, and not be led by these people in politics and the politicians, all of that. They don't have your interests at heart whatsoever. They will lead you astray. And it's really relying on love from your community, from your family, from your friends, and building those strong bonds together, as opposed to, you know, putting the government at the top of your value hierarchy and following what they say and distancing yourself from those people in your life that are really should be important to you. And I think innately as a human being, we value those strong connections with one another, personal connections. So people that have attached themselves to the narrative, people that have attached themselves to the politicians, they basically atomize themselves and they're disconnected, man. They're disconnected from what makes us human beings. Anyways, listen, that was a long rant. Obviously, you can tell I had a lot of stuff on my chest. I hope everyone has a wonderful, beautiful day. I'm going to close it off there. If you enjoyed it, give me a thumbs up or, you know, a like or whatever it is. And take care, everyone. Peace and love.